I grew up in a home with both my mom and my dad. They're married for 32 years. You know, even growing up in a home with love, I still sought relationships. I still sought more in feeling love, and so I kept on seeking after that growing up.
So being raised in a broken home from a young age, I had a longing in my heart to feel like I belonged. I had a longing in my life to find satisfaction. So at an early age, I started smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol at age 12. 17 years old, I started smoking crack, started doing meth, doing cocaine, popping pills, did a little bit of heroin, started drinking more, started sleeping with a lot of different girls, you know, doing the strip clubs, doing parties, pornography, stuff like that, just trying to find anything in life that would satisfy me.
I was in sexual relationships, I was in abusive relationships, I mean, you name it. Little by little, it just started getting worse, and I still wasn't satisfied, and I still wasn't happy, and I still wasn't getting the things that I thought that these relationships were going to be getting me.
After living that lifestyle from 12 to 22, I found myself in a hospital bed after a night of partying and cocaine use, and I remember just sitting there on that bed thinking to myself, what am I doing here? I'm all alone.
At one of my lowest points, a good friend of mine had just happened to come across my path from the past and said, I was like, what have you been up to these days? And she shared with me, I'm living for Christ now, and my whole life is about Him. And I thought that was so awesome. I didn't know why. I didn't even know what that meant. But I was happy for her, and we started hanging out, and I wasn't fully surrendered to Christ yet, but I was going. I was driving home one day, and I remember just crying, and I cried out to the Lord, and I said, God, you know, I just want to be wanted. And quietly, I just heard, Leah, I want you. And at that moment, I just cried, and I knew that's what I had been seeking. I had wanted Jesus.
As I laid there, I just remember hearing this voice that said, I never left you, I never forsook you, you walked away from me. And at that moment, I knew that it was God turning on the light in my life, telling me, you need to change, you need to get back to me. So I started going to church. After going to church for a couple months, I surrendered my heart to Christ. And I told Him, you know what, God, I'm tired of living this way. I'm tired of drugs. I'm tired of alcohol. I'm tired of women. I'm tired of this feeling of emptiness. I'm tired of the darkness that is in my life. And I want something more. I want something different. And if you could do that for me, Lord, I'll follow you. I want you.
My life changed. I was never again the same, and I knew that He was my satisfaction. He knew all I needed. He loved me, and He desired me, and that was it.
I was following the Lord for 3 or 4 months. I started attending this college ministry. There was a lot of girls there, and I thought to myself, well, hey, you know, none of these other relationships over here work, but you know, I was partying and I was drinking, that's why they didn't work. So after doing a lot of flirting and stuff like that as a Christian, a brother of mine that I had met, that I was actually serving with at the time, he had noticed me acting this way, and he came up to me and kind of just corrected me in a loving way and said, what are you doing? You know, why are you trying to be like a Christian Mac Daddy? Why are you trying to pursue all these girls? You know what I mean? Like, if God could save you, don't you trust Him that He could bring you a wife? Like, you need to rely on Him and not do it yourself. And so I listened to him because I was, again, tired of doing things my way. So I began to pray for a wife to come into my life.
I stayed around a group of friends who loved the Lord and who just constantly wanted to read and to pray and to talk about the Lord. And so that, you know, that was my life. And one of the friends that I had, at one point, I noticed him. And when I had noticed him, I realized that he was actually going to be my husband.
Months after praying, a night I was at church, and a girl that I have known, she had been going to my church for a while. We had actually hung out with other mutual friends and stuff, and I obviously noticed she was a pretty girl. She loved the Lord, but past that I didn't really look too much into it. But one night after church, she was talking with a group of people, just telling them how amazing God was and all the things God was doing in her life, and she began to cry, and she was just weeping because she was so in love with God, and she was so filled with God's love. She didn't care what people might say, what people might think. She was just so full of God's love. And I remember thinking to myself, that's the girl I want to marry.
You know, so I had been around this gentleman so often, but I never noticed him. And when the Lord had revealed that to me, I was just like, but, you know, this is kind of weird. You know, I thought it was just kind of my thoughts. And I said, you know what? Even if it was my thoughts, my ultimate desire is the Lord. So if my ultimate desire is the Lord, then He's gonna either pull me away from thinking these things, or He's gonna change my heart, or He's gonna actually align us together and bring us together. And little by little, He did. He drew us together. He aligned us in ways that I couldn't even imagine.
And both of us agreed that we didn't want to waste our time or our energy on somebody who wasn't willing to marry. So we were both willing to get married, and so we began courting. We went through our premarital counseling. But one of the things that we really made sure we did is we kept sexual purity at the center of our relationship. We had both came from backgrounds of sexual immorality, and we had both come from backgrounds of sleeping with our boyfriends or our girlfriends before we even dated. And that's one thing we wanted to stress is doing things God way. So we decided we're not going to have sex before we got married, but even past that, we decided we weren't even going to kiss before we got married, because we were going to get married at an altar, and the altar in the Old Testament has always been referenced as a place of sacrifice where you bring your sacrifice to God. And it's even an image in marriage. I was sacrificing my life for her. She was sacrificing her life for me. And we were sacrificing our lives together. We were sacrificing them to God. But what we wanted to do on that altar as well is we wanted to sacrifice our physical desires. We wanted to sacrifice our fleshly lust. And we didn't want to build our relationship on sex. We didn't want to build our relationship upon desire. We wanted to build our relationship on something more. We wanted to build it upon Christ. So we decided we wouldn't even kiss before we got married. In my past relationships, I wouldn't date a girl unless I slept with her. I wouldn't even talk to a girl unless she would kiss me. But yet I was planning on marrying a girl that I never kissed, I never had sex with, and I never even seen her with her clothes off. But again, I was tired of doing things my way. I wanted to do things God's way.
And I think because we were seeking God, we just got closer and closer and closer together and started to become one spiritually. And we got engaged and we got married, and we had our first kiss on the altar.
One of the best decisions that me and my wife made is to stay sexually pure before our marriage. And I really believe that because of our purity before marriage, that God has blessed our relationship.
2.5 years being married, and we love it, and we're just ready to grow and continue in our journey and our walk together with Christ.
We have something more to build our relationship upon than just sex or just desire. Our relationship is built on Christ. It's built on something real. Why wait? Because it's worth it.
Why wait? Purity, because it's worth it. My name is Leah.
And my name is John. And this is our purity story.